We always start at the bottom, and these are Alfred and I's composite rankings. We both voted. We had about 3 ties. And so what I did, just to separate a little bit, when we were tied with the team, I look at Warren Nolan's ELO, which is who you beat and how good those teams are. I looked at KPI, which is kind of the same thing, although they arrive at it in a different place. And then I looked at Kenneth Massey's college baseball ratings, which aren't perfect, but seem to be getting a little bit better. And if one screamed, hey, this team's better than the other, I use that to break the tie, just for kicks. So that's where we are. We will start at the bottom with the Missouri Tigers. And Missouri is the only team in the league that is under 500. The Tigers are 7-8. That said, Missouri has actually scored 15 more runs than it has given up. The Tigers this weekend lost the Friday game to Purdue Fort Wayne, but then clobbered the Mastodons by a combined 31-3 in the final 2 games. So Missouri, this was probably the easiest selection. The Tigers come in at number 12. Number 13, and I think this was debatable. To me, you got 3 teams we could argue at that 13 spot. Ole Miss was in 13 this week. I don't know that that's the right call. The Rebels have started to play better baseball lately, if you haven't noticed. They had a disastrous start to the season, and since then, Ole Miss over the weekend, let me pull this up just to make sure, I believe it swept its weekend series against Morehead State. It did. One of those games was a 1-run game. The other 2 were kind of laughers. The Rebels at this point are hitting the ball pretty well after a slower start. And the pitching still, I think that's kind of my question a little bit. But it feels like Ole Miss is doing some better things and is maybe got a shot to rise up a couple of spots in the power rankings in the coming weeks. All right, we got number 12, and we split the teams up. Alfred, number 12 is Mississippi State. That is the team that you are followed with, one of the 7 charged with following. So I'll have you give us a quick update on the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Mississippi State swept Evansville this weekend. It was it was another good weekend for Dakota Jordan. He's batting .414 this season. It's kind of a quiet .414 in my eyes, just based on the start Mississippi State's had, similar to their brother Mississippi school as far as starts go. But just like the Rebels, the Bulldogs are playing better baseball of late. They've won 9 in a row. They run ruled Evansville on Sunday. Dakota Jordan homered, as well as Connor Husak, who's had a great start to the year. And Harangelo threw 10 Ks again on Sunday. He's hands down now, I would say, the Bulldogs' Mr. Sunday pitcher. I think going forward the rest of this way, he's been arguably their best one. And, Mississippi State's playing better baseball. This was a good way to kind of cap off the final non-SEC weekend heading into SEC play, and they'll look to be a bit competitive going forward.
Yeah, Dakota Jordan is a potential first-round draft pick. Hit a tank or 2 this weekend. I continue to think this team has got a shot to be better. Again, the pitching has been a lot better than it was a year ago. Now, State's allowing a lot of base runners, but it's got a 33% strikeout rate, which is one of the better ones in the league. So that's something to take a look at with the Bulldogs. All right, our number 11 team, Kentucky. You've also got Kentucky. Kentucky had a weird weekend, getting hammered by Kennesaw State in the first 2 games. Game 2 was interesting because they lost that one 10-2 in 10 innings. So the bullpen really blew that one. Kennesaw State's a team that has given some other teams some trouble. I think took a game against Clemson in a series earlier in the year. So not Kennesaw State's in Atlanta, place where you got some baseball talent. I hope I didn't take all your thunder. Just wanted to add some stuff on the Cats there. But what have you got on Kentucky?
Yeah, bit of a rough weekend. I think they got outscored over the course of the weekend, 25-8, which is not where you want to be if you're Kentucky. Also, the starts they had were okay. Travis Smith and Dominique Neiman, those were the starters during their losses, and they did just kind of got hit on early and often, and that set up the offense for Kennesaw, and they just took off from there. Kentucky had a lot of batters strike out as well. They just kept getting racked up, and they couldn't get anyone on base to produce offense either. And The one thing I'll say going forward, it's not the I don't think you freak out totally if you're Kentucky, but your first SEC opponent next weekend is Georgia, who hits home runs a lot. And I think if you're doing this against Kennesaw State, you really need to take your midweek game and kind of look to build off something good, especially offensively, to keep up with that team. I just don't know if Kentucky's pitching at this point will be able to hold down Charlie Condon and the rest of them. We'll have to see about that. But, if they want to take at least a game, I think Kentucky's going to have to find a way to keep up with them offensively because other than their one win against Kennesaw, they kind of struggled to do that this weekend.
It's funny you mentioned Kentucky or Georgia because guess who's number 10 in our power rankings? Georgia. And my goodness, this team, if you like pinball, you like Georgia baseball because balls bouncing all over the yard in that one. Let me pull up the stats. The offensive stats for this team are just crazy. Georgia leads the SEC with 46 home runs. Second is Tennessee at 41. It has hit, okay, it's not up there in doubles among the top few. Hard to hit doubles when you're hitting the ball out of the park. It's walked 119 times, which is second in the league. It has struck out 119 teams. There's only 2 teams in the league that have walked as much as they have struck out. And I'll get to the other one here in a little bit if I think of it. Now, Georgia is also having the ball leave the yard a little bit. That's going to be an issue for his pitching staff. Has given up 22 bombs. So I would venture to say that most of the games haven't been in Athens. And I've been in that ballpark when wind was blowing out, and boy, it can get out. So maybe a little other something going on with weather and wind and whatever. But in any case, Georgia looks like it is built to hit home runs. And while we're on that topic, boy, we got to talk about Charlie Condon. Unless you have been under a rock, you have seen some of the exploits of Charlie Condon on Twitter, the exit velocities, the long distances of home runs. I'm just going to give you the categories in which he is leading the league. 552 batting average. He's almost 100 points over the next guy, 85 to be exact, I think. Slugging, 1.310. Dylan Goldstein, his teammate, second at 0.971, but that's 350 points of slugging, nearly above of second place. On base percentage, 650. Leads the league in that. Runs scored leads the league with 28. Hits, guess who leads the league? Charlie Condon, 32. Runs batted in. Somehow Charlie Condon is tied for 5th. I don't know how that happens. I guess he's hitting a lot of solo shots. But yeah, home runs 12th, leading the league over Colby Shelton of Florida, who's got 9, and Billy Amick of Tennessee, who's also got 9. Total bases, he's got 76. Walks, he's 16. I think that's how he's not leading the league in RBIs, because he's getting walked a lot. So, yeah, I mean, it has just been a phenomenal season for Charlie Condon. I think we'll be talking about him a lot. Okay, this to me is a tier where it gets a little more confusing. We've got South Carolina at 9. I could argue for the Gamecocks a spot or 2 higher. Carolina is one of your teams to talk about, so I'll turn the floor over to you at this point.
Yeah, they definitely could be a little higher. I mean, I think they also played Longwood, and we've talked about this. I mean, there's only so much you could take away from playing Longwood for 3 games, but I will say they got it done. They outscored them 42-8 over the course of sweeping them this weekend. I found this kind of funny. Eli Jones got the start on Friday for South Carolina, and he pitched his second win of the year, but gave up 9 hits along with it. So I guess Longwood just could not get a guy home to save their life when they were on base against Eli Jones and company. But the good thing about South Carolina, I saw they got a lot of RBIs and a lot of offensive production from a different player each game. You had Dylan Brewer Friday, 3 RBIs. Their catcher Cole Messina Saturday with 3 RBIs, and then Tyler Causey came in and DH'd on Sunday, and he had 5 RBIs. And the Gamecocks were also in double-digit hits for all 3 games. I mean, they were putting the offense together. It's a good way, I think, to kind of cap off your non-conference slate before you get into SEC play, because this is still a team. I don't know if you're with me on this, Chris. I don't really know what to make of them quite yet. And I just think it's because it's one of those non-conference bugs that they caught where I don't, they're going to have to play some SEC teams before I kind of could get a read on them. But, they're not too bad. Top 5 in the SEC and on base percentage as a team. They'll be competitive, I think, going forward, but they had a very nice weekend, and it's a very good way to head into SEC play.
Yeah, I think if they had not lost a pair of one-run games to Clemson, this team is probably viewed a little differently. I'm not a big guy who gets hung up on one-run losses. I mean, you are what your record says, and winning and losing has to count for something. But losing a couple of one-run games to Clemson, which is an outstanding baseball team, I think probably doesn't really hurt you. But I think they're going to be tough to pitch to. They've only got 21 home runs, but they've walked. They're the only team in the league that's walked more than they struck out, 129 to 126. Again, I saw that lineup last year in person in Nashville. I thought when that lineup was a full go with just about everybody, it was super impressive. So don't sleep on Carolina. We'll see how the pitching holds up, but I think that's a team that could really do some damage and rise up several spots higher than it is at the moment. We'll wait and see. Okay, number 9, Auburn. And let's see, is that you or me?
I think that's you, I believe.
That is me. Auburn over the weekend, I believe split a series with Lipscomb. No, who was it? We're in the middle of basketball and baseball and also doing football. So that counts for a little scatteredness. I'm very much looking forward to having just conference on conference play to follow, and maybe the end of basketball too. So, okay, I knew it was a team in our backyard, Austin Peay. That 15-6 game. I remember seeing some stuff on Twitter about worst game in the Butch Thompson era, that kind of stuff. After a one-run win on Friday night. By the way, Austin Peay's not bad. That is a team that's perennially a regional type team. Can give you some trouble. I guess Butch Thompson got Auburn's attention on the Sunday game as Auburn won that one 24-5. I'll see the Tigers this weekend. This is the team I think was ranked in the top 20 this morning, and in D1 baseball, I'd have to double check that. But yeah, I think this is the team that's going to be right in the middle of the pack all year. We've talked about how Butch Thompson's teams kind of constantly get undersold, but it is a brutal league this year, so we'll see where that goes. All right. Number 7, Alabama. Alabama right now, look this up, 15-1, one of the few one-loss teams in the league. There's only one unbeaten team. We've not gotten to that team yet. Alabama this week, and that's who beat Lipscomb. Another team from our neck of the woods, won that one 20-13, 10-1, 10-5. Alabama continues to be one of the more balanced teams in the league. I do runs scored per 9 innings on an adjusted basis. So, because if we just do runs per game, you got a lot of 7-inning games where the home team bats 6 times. It gets factored in that. Alabama scored just over 12 runs per 9 innings and giving up just under 4. So that run differential per 9 innings of about 8.1, one of the higher marks in the league. This is the team that has played a fairly suspect schedule so far, which is true of most of the teams. The strength of schedule, according to Kenneth Massey, 224 in the country. I think only Tennessee and South Carolina and A&M have played weaker schedules so far. But again, a lot of teams in that territory. I think Alabama, I think a case could be made for Alabama being a spot higher than it is. So watch that team. I think people are kind of slow to catch on to Alabama. It happened last year, too. I think Alabama was a much better team than people thought. Alabama deserved a better fate than to be paired with Wake Forest, but that's what happened last year. Got eliminated in Winston-Salem, so that was that. Number 6, the Florida Gators. And I could argue that's one that could be dropped below a team or two that we just talked about. But the defending national runner-up, Colby Shelton's having a monster year with the power. Hit a big walk-off home run the other night. What have we got on the Gators?
Yeah, it went 2-1 in the series against St. Mary's this weekend. Tyler Shelnutt's another good hitter that they've had this year, who's come alive a good bit. 288 average is nothing to sneeze at. He homered in the 10-0 win that kind of ended the series. That was the Sunday game that ended that series. It was a good way. I'll give Florida credit for this. It was a good way to kind of end another shaky weekend for them, especially pitching. Liam Peterson, another rough start on the mound against St. Mary's. He did that last weekend too in Miami, and the bullpen was just not as good either. I mean, the St. Mary's, in this first or in those games they won, just kind of took advantage of the pitching miscues. And we talk we talk about it all the time. We'll say this, I think, at least once a week. Chris, Kevin O'Sullivan's none too patient with his pitchers, and he just kept switching them out, and St. Mary's just continued to shell them. But Jack Caglione, when he got on the mound on Sunday, he delivered a win. Great win for him. And it's another team, Florida, who has a tough schedule going forward. A&M is their weekend opening SEC series. And then during the week, they got FSU. And the Seminoles are a very good baseball team, and they played very good baseball this year as well. So not an easy road in the near future for the Gators, who are going to have to pitch well against these lineups that they have coming up.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Florida. And Florida's played one of the tougher schedules in the league so far, but free pass rate, just over 14%. That's walks plus hit batters. That is excuse me, the second highest in the league. The Georgia's 14.1%. 1.55 runners per innings pitched. That's a really good indicator. I like to look at base runners. ERAs can be a little fluky. Only Ole Miss has been worse, and also Missouri. So that's not where you want to be if you're Florida. Giving up about 6 runs per 9 innings. ERA is just a little bit under that at 5.78. But I think that Florida's a team. I don't know. That pitching, Florida's always got talent, but some of those guys aren't as proven. They lose Hurston Waldrop, who's with the Braves now. Some other guys like that. I don't know. I've dropped Florida a little bit this week. I think you did too, because of some of the pitching concerns. All right, number 5, Vanderbilt. Got to see a lot of Vandy this weekend. Was at a couple of those games, or one of those games. Vanderbilt had 2 things you probably didn't see anywhere in the country. Had 2 starting pitchers go north of 110 pitches. Devin Futrell threw a complete game shutout on Sunday, and then Bryce Cunningham, who was really good his last couple of starts, threw 118 pitches in a pretty dominant game. Vanderbilt didn't walk guys in 3 of its 4 games last week. This is a team that had trouble with control early. If this team gets its arms right, look out, because there's a lot of talent in there. Their bullpen continues to blow some big leads or come close to it, and that's a concern. There's some talent there, but they've been blowing some games recently, and that could be something to watch for Vandy. But the starting pitching really starting to come on. All right, Tennessee doing what Tennessee does every weekend, just kind of obliterating another team into the sun. What did you see from the Vols this weekend?
Yeah, Lindsey Nelson Stadium is what you would call a hitter's park, to say the least, because the middle game, they swept Illinois this weekend. The middle game, Tennessee won that one 24-1. 20 total hits throughout the lineup, and 5 different players got home runs that game. One of those players, he got a home run, I think, in 2 of the games, was Billy Amick, who I think is making a case to be a top 5 hitter in the SEC if he's not already.
Yeah.
365 on the year, 9 home runs, 21 RBIs. On base percentage is great too at 43.1%. Bullpen was good on a 8-3 win on Sunday. Tennessee found themselves down early in that game and kind of stormed back into it. They had the Wichita State transfer out of the bullpen, Nate Snead, go 6 innings, had 5 strikeouts. He has the best record, I think, at least on Tennessee this season, if not in the SEC, maybe not the SEC, but on Tennessee this season at 4-0. But he went the majority of that game and kind of was the anchor holding the Illini back as Tennessee stormed back in that game. But the Vols get the sweep. Hopefully that pitching that Snead has and the others has holds up. They have Alabama for their first SEC weekend series, and that team just hits the ball. That's how they've been winning games so far this year. So we'll have to see how it is. But yeah, once again, Tennessee just home run on their way to another weekend sweep.
I think that Tennessee-Alabama series this weekend is the most interesting one on the slate, and I believe that's in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm. It is, yes. Let me see. Yes, it is in Tuscaloosa.
Number 3, LSU. You've got the number 4, 3, and 2 teams. So what have we got to say about the Tigers this week?
Yeah, they win 2 out of 3 against Xavier this weekend. You talked about this, and I guess the one good thing LSU or the really good thing LSU got out of this weekend, we had been waiting on Thatcher Hurd and Gage
Yeah.
Jump to really get going, and they got going this weekend. Thatcher Hurd did pitch the loss, but he did his job with 9 strikeouts in 5 innings and just 1 run. That LSU team in their loss they had just could not hit. They had 5 hits all game, and that's kind of not really what we see from them. When LSU hits, they usually win games just because their pitching's been really strong this year, in my opinion. Gage Jump went on Saturday with 10 strikeouts and just 3 hits and 5 innings pitched. He had a great start. And then probably the guy who's going to be toe to toe with Hagen Smith for the best pitcher in the league, Luke Holman. 10 strikeouts, 6 innings pitched, and no hits in the opener of the series. So LSU got good pitching out of this weekend. That's going to help them at least at the start of SEC play. And then I also want to mention Griffin Herring came in with a 3 strikeout save and Luke Holman start to end that game because Xavier kind of kept it very close in a few of these games this weekend. But again, the pitching for LSU, I think, is the strength. It's just about if they can get hits or not. And if they get hits, they'll probably win 90% of their SEC series this year, just based off what they've shown they can do on the mound.
Yeah, if they get those 3 starters going, they're going to be awfully tough. I think that offense has been a notch under what people maybe wanted, but it's still kind of a young lineup looking to replace Cruz and some of those guys. And Xavier's not an easy out. They're 8-8. That's the team that knocked Vanderbilt out of a regional a year ago. They got Xavier's former closer, a kid named Justin Lohr. So he was facing his own team this weekend. That was kind of an interesting storyline. But LSU, I think a 1-loss team at this point or a 2-loss team at this point. 14-1. That's what I thought. So in any case, the 14-2. They haven't updated this on the SEC website, I guess. But in any case, the Tigers continuing to get work done, and I think we're going to be in the top half of these power rankings most of the year. All right, Texas A&M comes up next. The Aggies just continue to get it done. 2 obliterations of Rhode Island in the first 2 games, and then one that went to extra innings. A&M was actually down a couple of runs in the ninth, and then got a bases loaded walk to tie it, sent it to extras where Aggies won it. A&M continues to have the best pitching numbers in the league, just about across the board. What have we got on the Aggies?
Yeah, only undefeated team in the league. Also want to mention, I mentioned a lot of weekday games last week. The one weekday game they had was against Texas, who we know is always a threat every baseball season, it seems like, and they won 9-2. Kind of dominated that game start to finish. And Ryan Prager, 13 strikeouts, 7 innings pitched in their first win over Rhode Island. Tanner Jones started and also got 8 strikeouts in 4 innings pitched. None of those guys gave up any runs. The last game, I think you mentioned, Chris, was the close one that they had, and that was Rhode Island had an explosive 8-run inning to kind of work their way right back into it after being down right around 7-0. Hayden Shute had the walk-off base hit, and I believe that was in extras. I think it was in extras. Yeah, it was in extras to win that game. So A&M just rolled through non-conference play like it was nothing. They, I think, rightfully have this second spot in the power rankings to themselves. The pitching has been the question for A&M, and the pitching's been the answer so far this year for A&M. Lead the league in ERA, opposing batting average. I mean, they're shutting guys down, and we all knew, what we were going to get out of Lavalette and Braden Montgomery coming in from Stanford. So this team could be dangerous. They could be competing for an SEC title by the end of the year handily, along with some of these teams at the top of the power rankings.
Yeah, and I just noticed we're doing this at afternoon on Monday. The SEC has not updated its stats for the Sunday games, which is really unusual. So I apologize. I've been given some stats that are a little bit outdated, but still, I would imagine fairly close. So there's that. Okay, number 1 team in the land. It's also the number 1 team in D1 baseball this week. My goodness, Arkansas. Can this team pitch or what? Let me just give you some stats on the Razorbacks pitching staff as I find them. K- free pass rate, 28.5%. That is the best in the conference by a pretty good margin. Second one, LSU at 25.9%. Free pass rate, I put hit by pitches in there, include those in with walks so that, because it's the same thing, right? Arkansas has got a 39% strikeout rate. That is the best in the conference. Just by comparison, Vanderbilt, pretty good pitching staff, 27.9% strikeout rate. Tennessee, pretty good pitching staff, 29.4%. LSU is next at 35.3%, but Arkansas just striking out guys at just a ridiculous pace. The offense has left a little bit to be desired so far, but hey, when you've got that starting rotation led by Hagen Smith that those guys have got, I will cast my lot on pitching and defense, especially in this era right now where hits and power are kind of cheap. If you can keep the ball in the yard, keep guys off base, which Arkansas has done, 1.4% home run rate, that's one of the best in the league. This team is number one for a reason, and I think is this might be Dave Van Horn's year. We're saying that in early March, which is kind of a stupid thing to say, but I like the way this team is built, and I feel like they're going to be a tough out for anybody in any park anytime.
Yeah, I'm looking too. I think, when you got pitching like that, I really don't know if anyone's going to be able to hit on them right now. They also, I believe they open SEC play against Missouri. So
Yep.
I feel bad for Missouri, man, because they're going to Fayetteville too. So that's no offense to the Missouri Tigers, but that's another kind of tune up for Arkansas, I would think, at this point, without being too disrespectful about it, as far as how good they could be. So they don't really have that tough of a test to open conference play. So we'll continue to see them roll.
That's all the rest of the league needed. Give Arkansas and that pitching a head start with 3 against Missouri.
Yeah.
and watch everyone else play from behind. Yeah. So, Alfred, any parting thoughts on SEC baseball? I know, like I said, I'm watching basketball and baseball, trying to do that. And again, I don't think that you can extrapolate a ton of meetings from some of these blowout games. We try to give you stuff and stats of interest where we can. I think once you get to teams playing 16, 17 games at this point in the season, you can extrapolate some things, but you don't want to put too much meaning into it. So anyway, to reiterate, cannot wait till all the teams start playing each other this weekend, and we'll be back next Monday to talk about it.
Yes, finally get to see them play each other. We've seen, what they can do against, again, like you said, I guess this is the team we've been picking on, but Manhattan against Team A, all that good stuff. But finally, we get some good matchups this upcoming weekend. Some of these teams, like I mentioned, Florida and Florida State, it's a rivalry and a good weekday test for some of these teams as well. So we'll have to keep eyes on those games. But again, it's going to be good because we finally get to see them play. Not as many games to look, scramble around and look at for me and Chris to kind of dig, through stats of what happened between South Carolina and Longwood and things like that. It's more so just closer on action with one another. And I think that's when the season starts to heat up, of course, is when that happens. So I can't wait for that.
It's been fun to try to sort through 42 games every weekend, plus whatever's in the midweek to track all that at once. But I think I might like the way that's coming a little better.
Oh, me as well. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Again, I think we will be able to get more meaning out of things going forward. We'll be here every Monday with this. We'll probably start adding some more baseball content too, with conference play upon us, and also just with as soon as basketball dies down and that ends for the SEC, I get a lot of time back, and I'm looking forward to putting that into watching baseball. In any case, he is Alfred Ezman. I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 14, presented by Bet Online.